Hey everyone, welcome to the opening ceremony of the Surreal World Assets Buildathon number 2. I'm already seeing some people in chat who I recognize from Surreal World Assets 1. So welcome back if you are joining us again. And if this is your first time, we're really excited to have you here. So today we're here to kick off the Buildathon and go through everything you need to know in order to participate. We've also got some really amazing speakers coming up and giving some talks in the session today. So hopefully you're going to leave this session extremely inspired, which I hope, having seen that trailer for the Buildathon, you might be inspired for one of the tracks that we're going to talk about today, and that is the generative video AI track. So that was actually a commercial that was produced as part of the Surreal World Assets commercial contest, which took place and ended a couple of days ago. That was the winner of the contest, and there, if you didn't catch it fully there, if you joined us late, I've just posted the link as a notification at the bottom of your screen. I really recommend checking it out. It's really, really cool, completely produced using generative AI. Really amazing the kinds of things we can do with the tools that are available today. So check that out. That is the first part of the Buildathon competition, but we're here today to kick off the actual Buildathon portion. So in order to do that, we've got a long run of show today, which we're going to jump right into. Before I get started, I just want to say I am really excited to be here today. I hope you're also really excited to be here. I'd love to see some energy in chat. I'd love to see some gifs and some great vibes. Please do be responsible, please be friendly, please bring great vibes, just general rules of the Buildathon, but important to note before we get started. That being said, I can't see the chat at the moment because I'm on my presentation, but I will be back in the chat during all the separate portions. So if you have any questions for me, then put them in the chat and I'm sure I can get to them. But otherwise, we can jump in and get started. So, of course, I want to welcome you, and I also want to introduce myself to those of you who do not know me and do not know Encode Club, who are supporting the Buildathon. I am Rebecca. I'm the program manager for the Buildathon this time. I work for Encode Club. We're a developer education community. We help developers like you learn, build, and forge your careers in emerging tech. We run lots of educational events, and we've had the pleasure of running the first Surreal World Assets Buildathon and now this one as well, and we're really excited to be working with the story team again. So that being said, I would love to invite 2 people from Story up to stage to kind of kick us off and introduce us to what the Buildathon is and really why we're all here, and also a few other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Nock, who is the events lead at Story, and Jacob, who I have already seen some of the Jacob Tucker fan club in chat. I'm going to invite them both up to stage to join me now. Now, this might be a struggle because we've got such a busy room, but I'm going to try and find them. Here they are. Hello, hello. So I'm going to hand over the stage to you guys for the moment because we're excited to kind of hear from you about the Buildathon, why we're here, why you're excited about the Buildathon, and everything in between.
All right, let's do it. Can I just get started, Nick?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I mean, what's up, everybody? It's so good to see you all again. If you participated in SWA V1 a couple months ago, I'm so happy to see you all again. I see a lot of familiar names in the chat here, and it's so great to be back. Before we get started, just want to give a massive thank you to Rebecca and Encode Club. They did our Surreal World Assets V1. And that was amazing. It was a huge success, and we had some awesome winners. And I know, again, a lot of you were in that one. So thanks a lot to Encode Club and Rebecca. But today, we have a lot to do. So I just kind of, want to dive right into things. Welcome to Surreal World Assets V2. We're so excited to have you all back. If you were in the last one, you know that things can get kind of crazy in here. Whether you're a non-technical, you're a technical, you like to code, you don't like to code, whatever it is, we welcome you. To participate here. And yeah, everyone please stay respectful. So yeah, so I'm going to give you from just a high level overview of sort of what this buildathon is and kind of like what we're looking for here at Story and why we're even running this in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully this works. Can Rebecca or Nick, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this? Okay, so I can no longer see the chat, but I know I know you guys are probably chatting away, but so yeah, so this is the Buildathon website. If you haven't seen this before, or I mean, I'm sure you've signed up at this point, so you've probably seen this. But we have various tracks here, okay? And I'm going to sort of walk you through.
Can I just interrupt you a second? Can you close us in the corner? You can
Oh
see.
yes.
Can you just hover over and close us? Nice.
Okay, perfect. So we have all these tracks here, and I'm going to kind of walk you through, sort of what Story is looking for, because obviously I think that's probably the most important for all you builders, and what this kind of looks like after the buildathon is over, and give you sort of insight into what that looks like. So, Story is a blockchain. It's a L1 blockchain for intellectual property. And so we are very focused on IP, right? And that is creative IP, whether it's music, whether it's images, whether it's AI training data, anything in between, right? And so that there really is a massive amount of possibilities that you can build with on Story. And again, you're not sort of like constrained to maybe certain tech or anything like that. We encourage people to use any kind of tech, but that's in the sort of field of IP, right? And again, IP spans so many different sectors that really there's a lot of stuff to do. And so these tracks here, I'll sort of dive into these in a second here, but I just want to give you like an overview of the Story ecosystem. One thing I want to show you, just to sort of get your mind spinning on like, what can I build, or what even is Story, or what is this? This is an app called Poseidon. Poseidon is an app that allows you to basically submit your voice, right, for as training data for AI agents. Let's say OpenAI wants more voice data to train their voice models, or a robot wants more voice data to train its voice, right, when it's walking around your house and helping you do chores, right? So Poseidon is an app that helps you to sort of submit your audio data. And you can see here, this is the website. You can go, there's a lot of campaigns here. There's an English voice data campaign. I can click on join here. I can start the campaign. And if I'm not going to click on ready here because I can't actually talk into this, but you would submit, like you would read text on the screen and then submit your audio data. And this is just one really popular example on Story of IP, right? Is AI training data. And this sort of covers the data track here. And what we're looking for in this data track is any type of application that helps, people submit their IP, their data, right? So that's to sort of gets your mind thinking about that one. Now, what about IP-Fi, right? What is intellectual property finance? Well, this is any application that helps, to sort of facilitate finance in the IP world, right? And so what is that? Well, it could be things like fractional IP ownership, right? What does it mean to, co-share an image or co-share an IP, right? What if Mario, was an IP that, had multiple rev shares and people could invest in it and own it, right? That kind of thinking. This is one very popular example of IP-Fi and Story. It's called IP.world. And it's basically a platform. It's sort of like a pump.fun, but it gives ownership to IP owners, right? So if someone launches Evil Larry, which is a really popular TikTok cat on IP World, the owner of Evil Larry can actually come in and claim a certain portion of that ownership, right? And that sort of aligns incentives between token creators, IP owners, community, that kind of thing. So this is just an interesting example of IP-Fi. If we were to dive into IP detection and enforcement, this is a whole other vector, right? What does it mean to sort of enforce and detect IP infringement on the internet? There's so much IP infringement going on. I'm sure that, you've all probably heard of the Studio Ghibli stuff. Sora 2, at this point, basically can't really make anything because anytime you put in something that, is IP, it says, sorry, we can't make that, generation because it's copyright protected, right? So IP detection and enforcement is really everywhere, and there's no common standard to to figure out how do we take this down, or how do we prevent people from using this IP without killing our business model, right? Like Sora 2 obviously doesn't want to block everyone from making certain videos with certain IP in it, because then people can't create, right? And so just as one example, this was a video of me dancing with my blind dog here. And I'm sure Robert is in the chat here, probably already making memes of me and my dog. But this is an IP that's registered on Story, and in the top right here, you can click on report this asset, right? And of course, I'm not going to report myself here, but you can see that Uma is the same, sort of technology partner or technology sort of what should I say, like infringement provider for Polymarket. Polymarket's probably one of the most popular, or if not the most popular prediction market out there right now. And Uma is the same same company that powers that, right? So when someone makes a bet that they don't know if it resolves or not, like Uma will decide whether or not that bet resolved, right? And so that same sort of concept is on Story, where you can dispute IP, right? And it goes to Uma arbitrates on it, they make a decision, and that decision gets returned. And so during the last Buildathon, we actually had someone, actually one of the winners of the last Buildathon, and use C2PA. C2PA is like a watermarking standard where they basically browse Twitter and they took all the media files on Twitter, watermarked them, right, with C2PA, and then anytime that they scanned them on the internet and they saw that it had that watermark on it, they flagged it as infringing and issued a dispute on chain, which I thought was really cool, right? Sort of this idea that you don't really need all the time, right? You don't always need courts and lawyers to dispute an IP. You could handle it on chain, right? Sometimes on Story. And so that was really cool. And again, that was actually a winner of our previous Buildathon. So really cool there. Now, this generative video track, this is actually a totally non-technical track. So you don't need, you don't need to code at all. You can just make a, fun sort of video that, uses AI to, do whatever. This, top anime, top horror, top sci-fi and fantasy, spec ads, brain rot, right? This, you could just use AI to make a video. And again, you're not coding in this track, which is really cool. And then there's the creative front end track. This is really sort of a catch-all track for anyone making applications in the sort of, again, in the IP space, whether it be a ChatGPT front end that registers generated images as IP. Maybe it could be a music app, right? And I actually want to show you, funny enough, this application that I'm showing here, arcade.co, this actually launched literally 15 minutes ago. So I'm actually hoping that it's like currently working and all that. But basically, this is a platform that allows you to take 3 different songs, right? So actually right now we have Nana. Nana is a very, very popular K-pop icon. And she actually is doing a remix contest with Aria Protocol. Aria is like a music sort of like licensing and like tokenization platform on Story, which is really, really cool. But they're doing a remix contest with Aria. And so we actually have access to remix, right, Nana's 3 songs. And this is sort of where the power of Story comes in, right? Is this idea that you can license, IP on Story, in this case, music, right, a song, and then via composability, bring that across apps in the Story ecosystem. So Aria can tokenize the songs, Arcade can remix the songs, right? And you can see, like, just if I play around with it, I can load vocals and melody and drums and bass from different songs into this builder experience here, and it automatically will sync the key and tempo of different songs together, so that it sounds perfect when I play this. Now, I'm not going to play this here because I don't think the audio will probably translate well, but you could try it out at arcade.co and have a ton of fun and sort of, again, sort of get your mind thinking about, what it means to create a sort of fun front end experience with a, fun UI where people can play around with IP, right? And music is sort of like, in my head, what I always think of when I think of, sort of remixing IP, right? So yeah, I'm actually, I can't wait to see what people publish on this feed page later today. So yeah, so that is sort of like an overview of, the ecosystem. Again, very, very brief overview of the ecosystem, and, sort of what these tracks are and what we're looking for. Again, if you have any questions about this, you can always ask. And what I really encourage people, and again, I'm going to be judging all the projects. So as the judge, I'm telling you, if you are building a project for this hackathon, one of the best ways to get feedback, to get your idea validated, is to go into the Story Discord, go into the Encode Discord, ping me, right, and say, hey, I'm thinking of this idea. Can you walk me through it, right? Or can you help me refine this idea? And I will, right? I will help you sort of think through your idea, think through how it relates to story, how you can build a better project that's actually needed, so that when I go to review it at the end of the Buildathon, I know your project, I know you've been working on it, you've been coming to office hours, and I know that your project is solving an actual need in the story ecosystem, as opposed to you building a project that you never came to office hours, and you didn't get that sort of validation that I can help you with right throughout the Buildathon. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. Now, for people that win the Buildathon, we actually have a couple winners from the past Buildathon here today to talk to you about their experience and their advice. And you're going to be hearing from them actually later in the session. And I'm so grateful that they're here today. But for people that win the Buildathon, we have a couple different things to help you keep building. Again, if you win the Buildathon and you don't want to keep building, obviously that's okay. But we want to make it clear that at Story, we want to help you continue building your project. And so as a part of these prizes, you're going to win an initial prize, but there's follow-up prize money for people that continue building in the Story ecosystem. So if you build a project that you really like and you want to keep building, you should do it, right? And we'll give you sort of that follow-up grant funding, co-marketing, all that fun stuff, right? But one other thing I want to mention is that Arcade actually is an ecosystem app, right? This is an app that came to Story, that was interested in Story, and they came, and brought this idea, right? And it was so impactful that at Story, we actually supported this project with direct development resources. So we put engineers on the project. I was actually, building this out, and we're really dedicated here, to help people continue building, right? So if that being said, if your project, wins and it's a really good idea and we see long-term impact, we will not only, issue that follow-up funding, but also support directly, right? And that is something that, again, is very case-by-case basis, and probably only for a very, very few amount of teams, but it's something that's definitely available and was available for Arcade. So I've been rambling for some time now, but again, I think that just should give a good overview. And I'm going to hand it off to Nick here to sort of dive into some more of the details. So again, if you have any questions, let me know in the Discord, and thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jacob. And yeah, Arcade is super fun. Go and test the beta. I'm really excited to see how that shapes up. And I don't know if you all know this, but Jacob was just absolutely grinding yesterday to get that over the finish line before the Buildathon. So kudos to Jacob there. Yeah, I wanted to just hop on and express my gratitude for everyone that is here in the opening ceremony, all of the builders that have registered for Surreal World Assets 2. I want to shout out Encode Club for being incredible partners on this. All of the, if things are working well and there's no hiccups, it's all Encode Club. I'm barely doing anything. And we just want to say thanks to them. And then I also want to just say thanks to, I don't know if they're on this call, but the judges that we have judging projects, all of the partner teams, all of the sponsor teams, and the special VC guests that will be joining us for the demo day on December 11th. Reminder that projects are due on the 4th. We'll be judging the week after, and then our demo day with the top projects featured is December 11th. And then our AI Film Festival will be Friday, December 12th. And then we'll publish a thread on Twitter the following week, officially announcing all of the winners. So there is a full-blown schedule in the Hacker Pack on your kind of hacker dashboard. We have plenty of workshops from sponsors and technology partners, even some IP partners. So make sure you attend those workshops to get an edge on the builds and learn new skills. I don't know where everyone's tuning in from today, but we do also have a community event calendar. If you go to, let me drop it in the chat real quick, Story community. Our community globally is organizing a series of workshops and mini co-working days where you can get together and build projects together or learn about ways to get involved with the Buildathon. So if there's one in your area, please attend, take some pictures, let us know you went. Super cool. Also want to shout out Vadzilla. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, but the winner of our Surreal World Assets commercial contest, Vadzilla. If you joined early, you got to see that, and there's a link in the chat that Rebecca shared. We really liked this piece because they were able to use the AI tools to make something truly unique, right? So one thing I've noticed is if you just kind of do the bare minimum, you get a semi-impressive slop video that, you know, has a voiceover that says, you know, basically what I think a bunch of these entries just copied and pasted like the entire Buildathon and like everything they could find about it and said, create a commercial for me, which yes, that works if you want to make a bad video. And so Vadzilla demonstrated that they just didn't do that, right? They actually worked in actual video that they shot on location and used AI tools to enhance the process. But you know, I sifted through 400 plus videos of just absolute slop that all looked the same and sounded the same and felt the same. Thank you for your enthusiasm, but you know, I wanted to select an example that kind of encourages people to think outside the box, and as we get into our actual generative AI video track, maybe use this as sort of a proving ground and say, this is an example of something I should be aspiring to. You know, that's one example. I'm really excited for that track in particular to see what kind of videos stand out. Usually I can tell from the thumbnail that it's an absolute slop video. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so two more things I want to touch on. One is I want to just touch on what does working with story look like beyond the Buildathon, right? How can, you know, if the worst thing is, I mean, it's not the worst thing. It's a very just a reality of hackathons is that people come in, they build, they get the prize, they impress people, and then they move on and they go to another ecosystem to scoop the next bounty up. That's not what this is about. The Buildathon, we actually debated, should we call this a Buildathon or should we call this a boot camp? This is really a builder campaign, right? We always have our developer Discord open for people who want to build on story. But we wanted to kind of centralize our marketing efforts around two events a year, right? They're virtual campaigns is what we actually refer to them as. They're where we can kind of line up our partners and coordinate efforts to lead workshops together. We do this Surreal World Assets Buildathon every May, every November as a way to just kind of concentrate that energy into a moment where we can all kind of work together on it and kind of focus these efforts, right? So in a way, you know, there is always some kind of builder campaign going on. I actually consider Surreal World Assets to be going on 10 months out of the 12 months out of the year, because there's all the prep time, there's the event organizing time, there's the follow-up time. But this is all to say that this isn't like a one and done thing. This is where it can potentially begin. We also have teams that have been building for years on like one product idea, but now they have a new unlock by way of integrating with story. That is absolutely welcome in the Buildathon. I think we actually had a number of apps last time where they already have tokens on Solana, right? But they built in some new integration into story as a way of tracking and composing IP through their app. That is absolutely welcome at the Buildathon. And so I just wanted to reiterate that this isn't like come up with an idea, put it in the Buildathon, see how it does, and now you're gone, right? This is a way for us to kind of concentrate a lot of resources together to make sure that you're getting the support that you need. And we do have kind of a more traditional, I don't know, like award ceremony that goes along with it. So that's the whole impetus and the kind of cohesion and kind of the reasoning behind what Surreal World Assets is. You know, if you don't win this time, keep building, enter the next one. Keep building outside of the Buildathon and come to the Discord, get support. I wanted to mention, here's what, like, when it comes down to how to work with us going forward, we are looking for you to build something good. It should be well thought out, very well researched, think of it more like, there's two sides to this. One is building something super cool, an open source tool that we can use, but it's not necessarily like a business, right? Maybe it's a fun ephemeral thing, and that's totally fine. It's a fun new product. But I want you to think about if you're looking to continue building this and you're looking to actually, I don't know, develop this sustainably. I'm looking for something we're looking for stuff that's very practical. We want to know what markets you're intending to disrupt. We want to know from the business side of things, how you're thinking about this long term. What does the 1 to 5 year roadmap look like here? What kind of partnerships are you already thinking about? Who are you in touch with? I mean, we were actually judging you on a lot of like business acumen here, not just writing good, clean code. So I would encourage all developers or founders to have a very holistic approach to this building session. Anyway, meet the development milestones, show some organic traction, and then once you're kind of launched and you're showing traction, you have the socials up and running. Let's see how you're doing. Let's see what metrics you're putting together, and we can then talk about partnerships and co-marketing. So I just wanted to kind of hit on these points as kind of some pointers for how to stand out against the crowd, because last time we had over 800 builders register. We're expecting more this time around, and I do want to give you tips for how to stand out. Thank you all for joining. That's it from me. I'm really excited to hear from the speakers today. So without further ado, I'll pass it back to Rebecca, and we'll get started here.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Jacob. If it's okay, I'll keep you up on stage. And if you want to interrupt me at any time with some additional comments and everything we're going through, then you can. But I will make the screen bigger, so hopefully everyone is able to see it well. Oh, Jacob's got fireworks behind him. How do you do that?
I have no idea how I did that, but that was cool.
Interesting. Wasn't expecting that. I love the energy in chat, everyone. But remember, please do keep it mature. That's what I like to see. Special powers. Okay, amazing. Let's get started. Of course, welcome again to the Buildathon. We've got lots to get through and not that much time to do it. So I am gonna, in a way, speed run things. And if you have any additional questions, then put them in chat for clarification at the end. And also at any time, reach out to me or any of the Encode team in Discord, and we'll try and help you out. Similarly, of course, the story team, especially Jacob, is available to support as well. But before we get started, what I really want to do is thank an amazing set of partners that we have, and there's a lot to get through. So I'm going to start with the challenge partners. For those of you who have not participated in the Buildathon before, we have different sets of partners who are supporting. We have challenge partners, we have IP partners, which is a new one for Surreal World Assets 2. We have technology partners, and we also have marketing and community partners. So lots and lots of groups of people to thank, but without their support, we wouldn't be able to make the Buildathon what it is. So first of all, the challenge partners who have set challenges alongside the story main tracks with their own associated prizes. So we have June, Yakoa, World, or Tools for Humanity, ABV.dev, and Juxtamode. A couple of these you may recognize from Surreal Worlds 1, but if not, I really recommend checking out more about each of these partners on the platform page, which actually, before I get too deep into it, I will share the link for again. For anyone who doesn't have it open, I highly suggest having it open alongside the call so you can scroll through and see all the bits and pieces that you're going to need throughout the Buildathon. This is going to be your main point of call for everything you need to know should be on the new Encode Club platform. This is something different to what we had in Surreal Worlds 1. So we're really excited to be launching Buildathon 2 on our platform. So as I say, we have 5 challenge partners who, alongside the main story tracks, have set their own individual challenges, which we suggest that you integrate. You build a project which is applicable for a main story track, but also takes takes one of the partners challenges as well. That being said, I don't suggest, and this is just my advice, I don't suggest trying to shoehorn as many partners bounties as possible, because you're going to end up with a weird Frankenstein project that barely works and is doing too many things at once, and you won't be judged as favorably as if you'd focused on one challenge and your story integration as well. So anyway, these are our challenge partners. We have 5 challenges that they're offering. So please do check those out on the platform. We also have our IP partners. Now, this is a really interesting part of the Buildathon, because these 4 IP partners are joining us to share access to their intellectual property. And we're hoping that the assets that they're offering to you might inspire you to build a project that you might not otherwise have thought about in building a solution for a certain type of IP. So we are going to have Snacks from Pizza DAO actually come on later in the call today, but we also have What the Freg, Sigma Music, and Color. Information about all the IP assets that they're giving you access to are all on the platform. I should note, you aren't required to use any of the partners' IP in your project. You can generate your own or use another unique form. But the partners have shared ideas on what they would like to see done with their IP. So it might give you some inspiration and allow you to consider some real world context for the projects that you're building. So we hope that this is both helpful and inspiring and exciting, that you get to use these cool projects assets. So as I say, for more information about what assets are available and what you might do with them, you should check out the individual descriptions for each of the partners on the platform. We also have a set of technology partners who, although they're not offering challenges, are offering access to their tooling, whatever that might be, in the hopes that it will support you as you build in the Buildathon. So I'll read out who we have here. All of the information about what they have to offer and what they do is available on the platform. But a really big thank you to Alchemy, Coinbase Developer Platform, Crossmint, dBridge, Dynamic, Gold Sky, Halliday, Holoworld or Hologram, IP World, Mirror Network, OLAS, Alto Finance, Tenderly, and Verse 8. I'm impressed I managed to remember all those names from their logos alone. So what they're doing, of course, is giving you access to their tools, platforms, credits, and things like that. So hopefully the infrastructure that they're providing to you helps you build faster and cooler things. Again, like with the IP partners and the challenge partners, you don't need to use their technology, but this is an amazing opportunity to do so. So I really suggest, again, checking out the platform and everything that is available, especially if you already have an idea in mind. You can have a look and see if any of the partners' tooling might be particularly helpful for you. On that, we have some workshops coming up where the technology partners and the challenge partners will introduce you to what their tooling and challenges relate to, and hopefully will support you in your build. Similarly, the partners will be available to support throughout the Buildathon if you do end up having any questions. And another group of partners that we need to thank are our marketing and community partners. So we have Angel Hacks, DSRV, who's a Korean community partner, LivePeer, and HackQuest. Massive thank you to all these guys who are also in some part, I believe, doing some in-person supporting some person initiatives as well, especially LivePeer, who is joining us in our London meetup, where if you didn't know, I and Encode Club are based in London, and we're having an in-person event here at the Encode Hub. So excited to have LivePeer joining us. I'd also love to know if any of you are coming from the Angel Hacks or the DSRV or the HackQuest communities and you're in chat, because it's really interesting to see whereabouts people join the Buildathon from, where you first heard about it, and if you're part of these communities already. We also, as Nick said, have lots and lots of in-person initiatives happening all over the world. This Luma link, I think, should be correct, although it is usually lu.ma, but I think this link works. And the QR code will definitely work to take you to the calendar. All of the links as well are on the platform and in the schedule under the in-person events banner. So if you have a look and see if there's anything happening in your local area, then definitely recommend going along to those. We love having online initiatives like this because we can reach a global audience and everyone can get involved. But we also do love having in-person, face-to-face interaction as well. Gets us out from behind our computer screens every once in a while. We can maybe touch some grass if we're willing. But yeah, definitely check those out. Aside from the in-person community events, we of course have lots going on online in the Buildathon. We have a set of workshops this week and next week, which are aiming to give you all of the kind of introductory information that you need to get started. An important one that I hope everyone will be able to attend is our Building on Story Protocol one-on-one workshop, which is going to be tomorrow. The recordings for all the workshops will be available and shared afterwards, but attending them live not only is great for the interaction that you get in chat, you get the opportunity to talk to the speaker if you have any questions that you want answered immediately, and they can give you more information live and on the spot. And also it's just great vibes, in my opinion. But we have the intro workshop tomorrow, and then we have over the next week or so a load of showcases for the technology partners and the challenge partners, and then a really cool workshop this Friday, which is on generative AI video with HoloWorld, which is introducing Ava Studio, which is a tool that you could use, especially if you're thinking of tackling that generative AI video challenge. So that's definitely one I recommend for all of you who are thinking of tackling that challenge. That could be a really helpful workshop if you haven't done a lot in AI video previously. As Nick said, you can very easily put some prompts into ChatGPT, or maybe not ChatGPT, into a video model and generate some slop. But if you want to generate something really cool and something worthy of a prize, then I definitely recommend coming and attending that workshop and getting some tips on how to best produce AI video, because that's a really, really interesting track and a great opportunity for those who are interested in kind of AI and creative industries. So definitely come along to that one on Friday. And then again next week, we'll have some more tech showcases as well. As I say, all the videos will be posted afterwards, available to anyone who's registered. They'll be on the platform, which I'll show you in a bit, to where you can find them to make sure that you're up to date. Another thing that I wanted to flag to you, which again is on the platform, but if you haven't noticed it yet, is that in the Buildathon, we want to keep you on track and make sure that you're making good progress. This is because the best projects are typically those that are built consistently throughout the 4-week or 3.5-week period of the actual Buildathon itself, rather than a sprint at the end, which although for some people might be successful, giving yourself the time in order to build and then change direction and what's the word I'm looking for? Iterate. Iterate on your product, get feedback from Jacob or anyone else, and kind of keep building and changing to really kind of improve your submission. To encourage this, we have put a checkpoint into the Buildathon. This is approximately 2 weeks from now, to give you some time to go through ideation and to start building and create a kind of initial prototype and share some information about it. And then our final submission deadline is on the 4th of December. Straight away, we're going into the judging period, so there are no late submissions. Make sure you are ready for this 4th of December submission. There will be a countdown. You can't pretend like you didn't know when it was, and you don't want to miss out on being judged because all your hard work would have been for nothing. That being said, I want to quickly put up the main tracks again. Jacob did talk a bit about them earlier, but we have 7 main tracks, each with their own individual prize pool. The prize pools for all are the same except for the generative video, which has 5 tracks within the generative video challenge. But all of this information is on the platform. So if you want to check it out in more detail, then definitely do that. As Nick said in chat, you are welcome to submit for multiple tracks. So you can submit for the generative video track, and then also submit a project for IP detection and enforcement, or data, or hardware and DPIN. Again, what I would suggest is focusing on 1, max 2 tracks for your technical project, just because if you're trying to dip your hands in too many pies, you'll end up with a less good product overall. If your product does apply to all of them, then well done. That's quite impressive. But in most cases, it doesn't. So focus on the ones that it does so that you can perform the best you possibly can. Okay, so I've speed run a lot of information. The only thing now that I want to do before we move on to our kind of talk sections of the launch event is I want to show you a bit about the platform. This is a platform that we launched about 3 months ago now, for an all-in-one builder experience during our hackathons. Everything that you need to know and everything that you need to do will be in the platform or accessible from the platform. So by that, I mean we have the challenges information, as Jacob just showed us. You can click into any of the challenges, and you can get all the information that you need, including the track breakdown. The challenge partners are here. The IP partners are here, the technology partners are here. Everything that you need to know will be in the description on this page. If you have any questions, of course, you can pop into the Discord and ask us. That is completely fine. But everything, your first port of call should be the platform, because all the information is already available to you. To get started straight after this call, what you should do is, once you're registered for the Buildathon, you should open your private Buildathon page, and you should join or create a project. So the first team member in your group should create the project, give yourself a name, give yourself a description. You can give yourself a logo, which we highly suggest doing, especially if you want to generate one. And then once you've done that, you'll have a joining code, which you can share with your teammates, and they can join your project. Please do this as soon as possible. You don't want to get to the end of the Buildathon and you realize your teammates haven't joined and they haven't been associated with your project, because that would just be disappointing. So please go straight after this session and make your project in the platform, and get ready to build. Once you've done this, you'll have access to the milestones and the submission point. Again, I want to flag the online events that we're doing. For lots of you who've joined us today, you have joined us directly from the platform. I'm showing you here. First, I'm showing you the schedule, which is where you can find where everything is, and when it is. It should have the time zone should be included, so you should be able to work out what time it is in your local time zone. You'll be able to join every event directly. Directly from the platform, and then the event recordings will be available in this finished events tab. A lot of you have joined us directly from Luma. You've come for the launch event alone. Please do register on the platform, which I sent a link to earlier. This will give you access to all the resources. You'll be approved quickly, hopefully, but just make sure that you've done that so you don't miss out on any of the resources. Similarly, in order to join the dedicated Surreal World Assets Buildathon Discord, you need to be in the platform where you can connect your Discord account and get added to the private channel. This is where we'll have Jacob in the chat, I'll be in the chat, the rest of the Encode team will be in the chat, and we'll all be there to help answer any questions. Lastly, before we get on to the talks in the launch event, a note about submissions. You submit your project in the platform directly. Once you've made your project and group and added your teammates, you'll have access to the submission point. The checkpoint 1 submission point is already open. You can submit and change and update your submission anytime between now and the deadline, which is clearly listed there, including the time zone. And there will be a countdown in the run up to it. Obviously, we've still got some time now, so no countdown needed. But do keep an eye and make sure you submit on time. Although you will be allowed to submit your final build, even if you miss the checkpoint, we really suggest using it as something to keep yourself on track. And it also allows us, because we know what you're doing, to provide any necessary support. So it's a good way to kind of deliver a message of I'm blocked by this, please help me, and make sure that you're kind of keeping on track. So again, these are the 2 deadlines to keep in mind. Put them in your calendar. Don't pretend you didn't see it. We've got the 25th of November and the 4th of December. Okay, so hopefully that's all the information you need. I'm seeing a lot of messages in chat, which I have missed, and I will go through whilst we're in our next talk and answer anything at the end. But for now, what I would like to do is welcome our first speaker up, who is Dryfella or Daniel Keller, who is coming to talk to us about sloptimism and hyper gambling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find Daniel. We have lots of Daniels in chat with us today. I'm going to invite the correct Daniel up, and Jacob, Nick, unless you have any further comments, we can all go backstage and we'll hand over to Daniel.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for joining us. I will hand over to you, and feel free to share your screen,
Sure.
and we'll get into sloptimism and hyper gambling.
Yes. Okay. So first off, apologies. I have Tuesday is garbage day in my neighborhood, and there's garbage trucks all around my house. So if you hear the noises, that's what it is. Hi, I'm Daniel Keller. I am a former artist, and I've been described as a internet theorist, and currently I am a partner at Aiden, which is a new fund incubated by Tribute Labs, which stands for Automated Diligence Investment Network. I forget the acronym often. And it's basically a rethinking of a DAO where there's actually an autonomous, very, very elaborate agent system that does diligence and a network of scouts. And the kicker is we share half of the carry for any deal that any of the scouts source. If anybody's interested in joining, hit me up. Get your friends' projects funded, get a little piece of the action. There's really no downsides at all. It's a pretty cool system. That being said, really glad to be here. Thank you, Nick George, for inviting me. What's up, Story Protocol? I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. Okay. So this is the first time I've attempted to give a talk on this, and it's a bit disjointed, and here are some random notes, and I think it's going to be a little bit weird considering the hackathon context, but here we go. So I'm going to start off with just a few of the basic assumptions that I have that kind of orient me culturally in general, and also are like the basis of sloptimism. Generally, I think novel cultural forms emerge in the wake of new technologies. This is not a new phenomenon. Obviously, until there was, cameras, there was no films. There was the introduction of the micro groove, which allowed for 33 RPM, which invented the actual album as a form. Generally, new cultural forms are downstream of these types of things. You can just kind of keep that in your head. My other basic assumption is that we are kind of in the early days of the singularity. We are undergoing techno-capital acceleration as described by Nick Land and other people. There's no negotiating this. This is just kind of the path that we're on. There are a lot of dynamics that are leading us to this, but it's not really up to us. There are a handful of people that actually are directing, these forces, and even they are ultimately just, at the mercy of much larger flows of history than them. Because of this, and because I think AGI is near and automation is inevitable, I think UBI is going to happen. I think it sounds politically very out of step considering all the concern about inflation and everything, but I think it's going to happen because there's no option other than that unless the elites want to, have mass riots. So in the absence of a labor market, the main paths left for upward mobility are attention economy arbitrage and hyper gambling. You can see this in general now as those have become more prominent activities. I don't think UBI is necessarily going to be generous. I don't think it's necessarily going to be universal. So there will be a lot of need to do these other things to sort of succeed. I think this is bullish for crypto and meme coins, etc. And so all these things make me assume that the most interesting new cultural developments of the next 5-10 years, they're going to happen at this intersection between AI, attention economy, speculation in general. Okay, so I love portmanteaus and neologisms in general. I think they're really useful. They're fun. They're a little bit cheesy as well. I've always kind of admired them. In my previous art career, I had a whole series of work. You can see one of these in the background. They were called FUBU career captchas. These are back from 2013. I used a Markov chain to generate random words from this one kind of anti-tech document to come up with novel professions of the future or ideas from the future. And then I rendered them as captchas and then 3D printed them and carved out a lot of materials and assembled them. Anyways, I think that portmanteaus are really powerful. And I think that there's a lot of power in coining new words. I had friends that coined words like normcore, etc. in the past, or witch house. And I'm dating myself a lot, obviously, but I always saw how much currency that had, and also how important they were for actually defining the future. Like you couldn't really, normcore existed before normcore was defined, but you sort of, distill it or capture it by coming up with a word. I think it's also pretty useful in a world without as much clean copyright protection. You're gonna, and you're being identified as the coiner of a phrase by LLMs is going to be important. Last year, I saw a lot of talk about slop. I very deliberately decided I'm going to coin a new word around slop and try to mark my territory with it. So this is the tweet I wrote, just kind of covering all my ground: sloptimism, slopulence, sloptocracy, slopportunism, sloptionality, slopaganda, slopocalypse, sloptimization, sloponomics, slopulism, slopdick, slopium, slopacost. That's the reply. There's a lot of them. I just wanted to make sure I cover them all in a joking way, but out of all of these, I did find sloptimism to be the most evocative. And then just around that time last year, I kept on seeing these instances of, I was like, oh, it's real. Like this is a new attitude that I've described, or a condition. Yeah, sloptics. All these are, they're great. So I did it last year. I started it, and basically the only thing I did is I tweeted the word a lot. I quote tweeted it a lot, and people started, publishing things about it themselves, and they did quote me, and that was enough for me to get into the LLM. So if you search any of the LLMs, you ask who coined this phrase, it's me. So anyways, I thought it was an important experiment, and I have not gained any actual wealth from this, but I think it's a good proof of something. And Sean Monahan, who was one of the coiners of Normcore, he helped. He did help, I will admit, and he wrote a whole thing about sloptimism as well. So what I think links sloptimism, slop, hyper gambling, attention economy arbitrage, which I'll get into the definitions of, is prediction. There was a pretty interesting article that was published by A16Z, which I think is a random place to read cultural theory, but Alex Danko wrote this really, I think, brilliant article. Prediction is the successor to postmodernism. And he was the first person that I think kind of defined that link, that what is happening right now is prediction, next token prediction, and prediction markets. And those are the same essential thing. So I think it's a safe bet to, bet on this continuing as a trend, and that the line between prediction and creation will become increasingly blurry. And again, safe bet, novel cultural forms are going to be invented here at this intersection. So what is attention economy arbitrage? Lots of examples of it here, as you can see, but generally, I think it is an acknowledgement that, at least I'm coming from an artist perspective, that make the art you made stop becoming the central kind of activity, and it was much more about the distribution and about converting that attention you got from social media into some other saleable thing. Even if that was an art object, the primary place where you were marketing it was through social media. So here are, a lot of different examples. Some of them are less arbitrage. I think in the case of like, the NPC trend, that's like all in one platform, and that's actually just kind of like being subsumed by a platform. But in the case of, Brad Trammell or Josh, these are podcasts. They get attention in the New York Times, and they convert that into subscriptions. Azalea Banks converts her notoriety into CMOS gel, and ultimately this is like the same behavior. And it's one of the few ways that is, an easy way to make money on the internet. It's kind of the central activity. So what is hypergambling? Oh, I just lost my light. Sorry. So I think this tweet is not a great definition, but it's okay for now. And I'll just read his. But hypergambling is the frontier of a new financial subculture which embodies the growing disconnect between tangible money and notions of intrinsic value. And I actually see hypergambling as in the direct lineage of conceptual art and the dematerialization of the art object. And that maybe started in the 60s as a bit of a critique about notions of value. But as these things tend to go, they stop becoming critical, and eventually people forgot what was critical about them in the original, in the first place, and just kind of do it unironically. So I think it's just about sort of these absurdist forms of value creation where the price becomes a bit of the punchline or becomes the content itself. And I wanted to show the link between both crypto stuff and contemporary art. I think the Banana Comedian by Maurizio Catalan, which Justin Sun bought and then ate a banana. He didn't eat the piece. That's another important thing. It's a certificate. That's what he bought. This is all hypergambling to me. I'll let this video play first. Oh no, you can't hear the sound. Well, there's captions. It's Mr. Wonderful. It was quiet. Sorry, I thought it was the system audio would be playing through. Anyways, you saw the captions, I guess, in the screen. I saw Mr. Wonderful post this last year, and this was when I was like, okay, I'm actually onto something. I think here. This is what artist's role is now, and this sort of his outfit. He's in some mall in Dubai, I think, or something, where he's recording this. He has his insane watch on. Somehow, this all just, I think, kind of defines the aesthetic. I think also, the election of Trump, the Trump coin, Melania, all of that happening right around last year, it really felt like, oh, okay, yeah, this is definitely happening to our society very rapidly. So Sloptimism is, I call it the Panglossian embrace of the total output of the attention economy. Pangloss was a character from Voltaire's Candide. He is a character who is a satire of people who are overly optimistic about things, about Leibniz specifically. And he basically, an increasingly number of horrible things befell him. And because he believes that this is the best of all possible worlds, he's always looking on the bright side and always finding the positive, the silver lining. So it was meant as satire, but I think it's also a good coping mechanism for a world that you don't have much control about. So that's why I sort of personally, I like this attitude. It allows you to both participate and critique at the same time. So it's about finding joy in the abject beauty and the hyperlibidinal recursive refinement of slop. It's about diving headfirst into the compressed soup of neurotransmitter triggering attentional entanglement. And like I said earlier, it's an end state of both conceptual art and postmodern finance. It represents both a condition and a strategic position within the cultural landscape. You don't have much of a choice, but you can, of course, embrace it more thoroughly if you want to. And it embraces the transformation of the conceptual art object into an attention conversion device, a mechanism that transmutes human attention into liquid capital through various technological and social mechanisms, like I described before. So attention as medium, attention as material, attention as process. I think it's very important to point out the initial transformer paper where LLMs were invented. It's called Attention is All You Need. The attention mechanism was, this is a non-technical, I'm abusing the term, but attention is what allowed LLMs to work. Again, I'm using the technical term, but I think it's very poignant. Panglossian anti-critique, like I mentioned, and then liquidity aesthetics, where that vibe, like I showed in that Kevin O'Leary video, becomes the aesthetic itself, where that rapid conversion of different forms of value becomes the point itself. And I didn't actually include any of these, but never mind, I'll get to it later. So here are some, I think, important mimetic moments in the history of Sloptimism. They're kind of roughly chronological. Yes, thank you. The handshake stuff, I think people use this a lot as cope. I think they're really beautiful images, of course, as well. That's kind of why I like them. But this was a lot of cope in the early days, along with the Will Smith spaghetti test, that these were, basically boondoggles that were being over invested in. But I think they were pretty important cultural touch points. Actually, some of this was earlier, but I think this was really important. I name one thing in this room meme. That's, I think, actually really sloptimistic, because it really leans into the slop as sort of, as the real aesthetic there. And I think that was one of the first AI generated memes that I remember. There's definitely the shrimp Jesuses on Facebook and in general, all those things. And then I think Drippy Pope was really important. It was the first kind of photorealistic one. It was the first one where people were not quite sure if it was a deep fake or not. Got a lot of attention. Then this year, I think we saw a huge acceleration of slop becoming central to our culture. Italian brain rot. Italian brain rot to me is like a fascinating phenomenon. It's like the dream of Web3, decentralized IP created communally, but there was no tokens involved. There was attention economy arbitrage, of course. But I think the fact that happened is really important. I saw 4-year-olds saying tralalero tralala on the playground. This type of penetration of AI culture, that was kind of unprecedented. I think the Please JD memes also very, very important, and show how this is going to start having kind of political ramifications, especially as politicians start embracing it themselves. The Ghibli day was crazy to me. The whole feed was this. It was kind of like OpenAI total cultural victory. And it also involved, the White House posting this thing. And again, like, I don't know, like, it shows that AI is transgressive, but it's not necessarily countercultural if the White House is posting it, transgressive AI edgy memes. And I'm not quite sure what to make of that, but it's definitely a interesting inversion of previous cultural norms. Then yes, I think this, even in the later this year, as the quality increases, we see it just kind of subsuming our culture more. We had the realistic Sora videos, we had all the glass rock videos, and then recently we had, although I've heard this is not quite true, we had a AI generated country song that charted, and I think this is just the beginning of that trend. So I'll let this play too. I'm not sure if you'll hear it. I'll turn up the volume so you'll definitely hear it. Here, wait.
I was a little distracted because I was tracking the prediction market about what Coinbase will say on their next earnings call, and I just want to, add here the words Bitcoin, Ethereum, blockchain, staking, and Web3 to make sure we get those in before the end of the call.
Okay, yeah. So I think I'm probably too loud now. I'll turn it down a little bit. So
we've taken all of our questions. That's it for today.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should get used to living in an increasingly hyperstitional world where these types of ubiquitous prediction markets and hyper gambling outlets create these recursive, self-fulfilling incentive loops like we just saw there. And automated capital kind of begins to affect causality itself. I tweeted this in response to Chauncey Billups being arrested for fixing NBA games. or actually it was poker games, but he also was fixing NBA games. This is an example of somebody doing market manipulation on a call. And of course, right now this is considered criminal, but I do wonder what is the end state of this becoming fully normalized. So here are a few random predictions, and then I'm almost done. Sorry, I've taken a lot of time. One, I think spectator sport is going to turn into speculator sport. So if you imagine a new type of sport that basically allows for all the players and coaches to be insider trading and taking prediction market bets on the side, eventually you reach a new equilibrium. And so I normally think it's cringe to share pure GPT output, but I asked GPT to think of some new sports with this as the equilibrium. And I like this idea a lot of Minecraft League, where you're not winning on points alone, but you're winning, the teams win on P&L, basically based off of like how well they do based off of compared to the prediction of how well they would do. I think there's going to be some cool possibilities in this world. I also think like we said, the Drippy Pope is peak. That's going to be an emerging trend. What was once slop will become cherished as an aesthetic. I'm actually launching a nonprofit to try to preserve historic AI models for this very reason. I just want to get ahead of the trend. I know it's coming. I can already see it. I already see the demand for this stuff, and it's already very hard to access a lot of these models. And of course, beyond the aesthetic stuff, you see people like the Chat GPT 4.0 zombies, demanding an old model not get killed. I think we're going to see more of that. I also think that we're going to see botnets become, again, as right now, it's maybe an asymmetric thing, but the end state of that is it becomes a new publishing medium itself. And so, here's an example of the double speed company, the A16Z backed phone farm. I just think this kind of accelerates the end state. And here's an idea for a sculpture I had, which I want to build. I also think that as things become hard to discern being reality, there's going to be new forms of photojournalism. I have a friend named Sam Wilson, also Nick George knows him. He's working on an app that's doing this, where basically you can make a splat out of a composite of a lot of different cameras at the same time. And I think that'll become more important for establishing ground truth about actual events. There's going to be just need for this kind of sources. I also think provably human spaces are going to be luxurious to inhabit. So all of my optimism, it accelerates the backlash as well. And more generally, I think the only way out is through, we don't have an option here. You should engage with this world and embrace it, and try to make the most of it. And I won't take up any more time playing this song, but here's a slop song about hyper gambling, which if you want, I'll send it to you later. Thanks for all of your time. Bye.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Next up, we have another guest with us, another Daniel, who I'm inviting to join me on stage now. Daniel was a winner in the Surreal World Assets 1 Buildathon. He won the IP5 track. And he's here to talk to us a bit about the project that he built, which was Ontology Finance. Some of you may remember him from the demo day. For now, Daniel domination, but we will have a resurgence of non-Daniels towards the end of the event. But Daniel, our second Daniel, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'll hand over the stage to you, and you can introduce us to Ontology Finance.
All right, can everyone see this?
Yep, we can see your slide deck.
All right, great. So hello everyone, my name is Daniel. And for the IP5 track at the first edition of Surreal World Assets, I built Ontology, which was this AI-enabled like yield optimization and aggregation protocol, but specifically for royalties on Story Protocol. The sort of like problem I wanted to tackle was that there are potentially billions in creator royalties that are sort of sitting idle in these royalty vaults once like royalties get routed to like specific creators in IP. And story native creators who like may or may not be technical could sort of like miss out on probably millions in like aggregate millions in potential yield. I think there are like so many opportunities in DeFi that to earn yield that are honestly kind of technically complicated and also very hands-on that I kind of wanted to bring to anyone who was kind of uploading their IP onto Stories portal and earning royalties through that user interface. So this is why I built Ontology. I did make some updates since the Buildathon. So I think at the time I had built sort of my own UI, and I sort of had my own like vault that I would have users deposit into. Now, like it's not quite demo ready, but it will be demo ready very soon. Users can download a Chrome extension and basically deploy royalties to yield-bearing strategies directly from Stories UI. Chrome extensions, there are lots of different options for like injecting UIs into like an existing page. We also have, this is something that like existed at the time, but definitely I've been building out a lot more, custom AI agents that are scanning the market, scanning basically various lending protocols for optimal yield opportunities as the APR sort of like changes dynamically. And also like automatic rebalancing. We have like an autonomous execution layer basically that enables autonomous rebalancing, and we abstract all of that complexity away from the end user just simply to like deliver the highest like risk adjusted APR possible. So we have two strategies live. This was sort of what I had kind of at the time of like winning the Buildathon. So far, we've integrated we've integrated far more and across like more chains. We also like enable cross-chain yield. You can like your yield is not limited to like the lending protocols and the like DeFi that's available on Story. You can deploy your IP like via various like bridging and also just other kinds of like cross-chain interoperability solutions to like a number of like whitelisted strategies cross-chain. And we also like very much put security first, and also like part of the reason I transitioned away from like my own UI and like wanted to keep as much of the user experience on Story's own UI as possible, and also kind of the reason I transitioned away from like deploying my own ERC-4626 vaults, which would like come with like these huge trust assumptions. Like that, like I guess like users would sort of just like have to trust that I am not like a malicious actor. And I didn't want to like, I didn't want for users to like have to do that. And so like I guess I can get a little bit more into sort of like the other sort of infrastructure transitions I've made since the Buildathon. But the point is that only whitelisted strategies undergo execution. Something else was that I wanted to like add a little bit more to IPFi. I think there are a lot of really cool projects in the ecosystem, but to some extent they were like a little bit siloed. I guess like the one lending protocol that I know of on Story, Unleash, I think it was. I mean, like with all due respect, like it was kind of the pools were a little bit low liquidity compared to like the other sort of lending protocol options that exist on like more high volume chains like Ethereum or Base or Solana. And I also kind of wanted to again like abstract away all of the like technical complexity that comes with yield farming, like whether on a lending protocol or a staking protocol. And I also kind of wanted the option to like abstract away the complexity of like having to bridge to another chain, having to like swap out your IP for like some kind of stable coin. I guess like the option that I enable right now is like USDC, but like all of that, it's pretty thorny UX, like as from like coming from someone who like has like had to deal with like wallets and bridges and like various swap interfaces and all of that. It's just kind of like annoying. So I kind of wanted to, again, like abstract away like as much of that complexity as possible, which is why like I even moved away from like having my own UI. It's like everything should sort of happen from the portal, and it should be like as easy as possible. So again, like every single update that I've made isn't like quite demo ready. I will like be posting on my Twitter, once it is up on like the web store. But this is sort of what the old UI used to look like. We would have like a vault where users could just deploy their IP from the royalty vault into like my ERC 4626 compliant vault. And then that would be, and then they would receive basically vault shares in return. And then they could like claim like those vault shares for whatever funds that they had in the vault. And the funds would basically be deployed to these yield bearing strategies, which at the time was like the USDC market on USDC Ethereum market on Aave, and like whatever the corresponding one was on Compound as well. We have since expanded to a few other chains, including Base and Unichain, as well as a few other lending protocols, including Morpho and Euler. But in any case, this is sort of what the old UI used to look like. So I guess I can get into a little bit more detail about what's new. I don't know how much time I have left, but so basically since the Buildathon, like I basically wanted to get rid of like as many trust assumptions as possible. I think when I first built out this project, I was like fairly new to crypto. So like I wasn't like super familiar with all of the tech that was available to me, and also sort of like the ethos of like verifiability and trustlessness that is sort of supposed to like underlie and like motivate all of the technology. So I guess since then I've been working on like making like all of the like AI enabled components of the product like as verifiable and as transparent as possible. I think there are a lot of cool projects working at the intersection of crypto and AI that like made it really easy to do this. For example, I'm on the mainnet alpha for Eigencompute and Eigenai, which basically lets me one like have deterministic and verifiable AI inference, which is like really helpful and like almost I would think table stakes when you're dealing with like other people's money. And then also Giza, which I think is one of the leading sort of AI like yield optimization aggregation projects in the space, open source their agent framework. And so I was kind of poking around on that and using that sort of to like edit and like better inform my approach. And again, I've since like expanded. There are now like more like whitelisted and risk adjusted strategies that users can opt into, like apart from Aave and Compound, Euler, Morpho, Fluid. Now, the users don't just have to use Ethereum. They can also deploy to strategies on Base, Unichain. Most recently, I think I'm working on a Plasma integration as well. And also, like another update that I had just for like purely for better UX was like I transitioned sort of away from the dBridge integration I'd been working with. dBridge was like a bounty sponsor for the hackathon. But I thought sort of Stargate and Layer Zero had sort of a better or enabled like sort of better UX and also like just faster bridging, also like a somewhat like better developer experience, at least for me. And Stargate is also like a very close partner of Stories. I think there was like a post over the summer from Stargate about like Stargate's bridge like having processed like I would say I think $1 billion in volume from to and from Story, which I thought was like a huge milestone. And so I thought it was a pretty appropriate integration here. And again, I made a lot of sort of like design changes, and we're pending release as a Chrome extension in order to again like make the user experience like as seamless as possible. I want to like inject this feature into Stories portal UI and make it like seem as native and as seamless as possible. And I think that's like really important, again, for some of the trust assumptions that users have to make when they're using this. Like it doesn't really make sense for them to have to trust some student developers front end and some student developers like Vault, when we can leverage all of this battle tested and like well audited infrastructure that exists to enable like cross-chain DeFi. In any case, that's sort of my pitch for like automated and invisible yield optimization of royalties on Story Protocol. Again, it's just something kind of as simple as like putting your money to work like in TradFi. Like you shouldn't just let your money ever sit idle. You should always sort of be putting it into some sort of investment strategy in order to like, it's just like kind of prudent investing to have your money make more money. And I think this should apply to creator royalties as well. So in any case, this was Ontology. My name is Daniel. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Daniel, for joining us and presenting. And it's really cool to see what's changed since we last saw you at in a Surreal World's Assets event at the demo day. So really cool to have you back, and thank you for coming and presenting. Thanks for joining us, Snacks. I'll hand over straight away to you. I like that your profile picture is behind you.
Oh yeah, this was painted actually by an early Pizza DAO member. All right, so we are Pizza DAO. I'm gonna give a little bit of background to start, but first, thanks Nick for inviting me, and shout out to Brandon, who is actually product design at Story, and also the creator, the father of Molto Benny here, which is Pizza DAO's mascot. And yeah, and I'm not a Daniel, but I will not dox my real name here. It is, but you can know it is not Daniel. So I'll start with a quick story. You probably all know this. I'm just going to breeze through, but we love this story at Pizza DAO, obviously. And I think specifically that the Bitcoin Pizza Day story is the most approachable story about crypto. Anyone can understand it. It's funny. It's fun. It's pizza. So yeah, you know Laszlo, probably. And if you don't, that's the guy who spent 10,000 Bitcoin on 2 pizzas in May of 2010. He did it by posting on Bitcoin Talk, which was the early forum. And then ultimately, someone else actually bought it for him. And this is a theme I'll come back to, which is that, you know, people are actually the atomic unit of commerce and of crypto. So he did not actually give these Bitcoin to Papa John's. He actually gave them to this man, Jeremy Sturdivant, who is written out of the story in many tellings, but I think was a hero. And this was the guy who took that 10,000 Bitcoin, said, this is worth something to me. I'm going to buy Laszlo some pizza and make sure he and his kids can have pizza night. So history was made. And years later, we came along at Pizza DAO and we set out to really make this into the global holiday we think it deserves to be, given that this was the first time that crypto value kind of escaped the metaverse into reality and materialized itself as pizza. And pizza, you know, pizza is historically a real front runner on tech, right? You know, Pizza Hut had one of the very earliest websites. Or delivery, ordering, AI you see with pizza. I mean, we see Will Smith with spaghetti. We actually made one, Will Smith with pizza. But what many don't know about us, though, is that the initial info was during COVID, we wanted to support small businesses, and we thought that crypto was the way to do it by bringing them on chain so that we can actually tokenize them and move them into community ownership. Because why should I have to take my capital and invest it in Apple and, you know, and the big five, whatever, the largest companies on earth, when really, when we talk about what's going to make a difference in my life, that's my community, my neighborhood. So if I could put my money into my neighborhood, then I might actually improve my standard of living and my community better than parking my money in kind of, you know, abstract, large entities that are actually maybe even overvalued because it's the only place anyone knows where to put their money. But yeah, so we're this global community. This is some of our members all over the world. And we came out of Clubhouse, actually. So, because everybody ran onto Clubhouse during the COVID pandemic. And we ultimately harnessed all of that energy, that creative energy, and we got 314 toppings together and we scattered them wildly onto pizzas, and we sold them as NFTs. But Pizza Now, when you come down to it, it is an invitation for every pizza expert, every pizza creator, every pizza enthusiast on Earth to collaborate. We think of ourselves, we are a Schelling point for pizza creativity and innovation. Robert says that the entire software development field would end if you eliminated pizza and coffee. Yeah, this has fueled a lot of stuff on Earth. We've thrown 5 global pizza parties actually now, and in our most recent one on May 22nd, 2025, we actually hit over 400 cities all over the world, across more than 100 countries, and these are all really fun parties. This wasn't just like go to your local pizzeria with a few friends and have pizza. This is like hundreds of people getting together all over the world, celebrating crypto, celebrating pizza, and making relationships. And this is important because, again, people are layer 0. I just want to go back. Like, if you look at this map, every one of these little Molto Bene icons, this is a community that Pizza Now has built to fundraise from, right? And to make relationships with their local pizzeria. So this is our on-the-ground army. And when you take a step back and you look at how people build products and services in our world, go to market and marketing community building, that's a huge expense. It is a huge expense. And that's why I think that crypto and Web3, right, with our people, our layer 0 perspective, we drive that cost way down. When you can immediately give ownership of your project, of your product to a massive audience, then you have your go-to-market kind of there from the get-go. And I think it will drive these costs way down. So people are layer 0, something that I think is so important to remember. So what are we actually going to do, though? Like, what is the end goal here, right? And so we're going to grow this global pizza party, and we're going to make it bigger every single year. And then we're building this expert network, right, of pizza experts and pizza enthusiasts. Then we're building tooling for all the pizzerias that we build relationships with, because it's kind of tragic when you think about it that big pizza, right, your Domino's, your Pizza Hut, your Papa John's, they have the best tech, they have the best marketing, but they have the worst product, the worst pizza, right? And we can also think about real estate and just pizza creativity, all sorts of projects. So some of the experts that we've already connected with are Williamsburg Pizza, famous pizzeria in New York, the World Pizza Champions, are kind of like our godfathers in the pizza industry. Sanctuary Pizza is our good buddy out of California, and then Scott, if you know Scott Wiener, he's kind of a legend in the New York pizza scene, largest pizza box collection in the world, and just an awesome guy. Runs Slice Out Hunger as well, which is a great charity. So let's talk about some pizzerias that we're working with. So very recently, actually, our Nairobi community onboarded. They met this guy. His name is Chef Francis, Chef FM. He goes by. This is him right here, and he lives in Nairobi. He's trained as a pizza chef, and we brought him into the Pizza Now fold. And in a couple weeks, we had given him a new brand, a new website. We fixed his Google profile. We fixed his Bolt profile, which is their Uber Eats kind of a thing in Nairobi. And we also have started building marketing tactics for him. And we've supercharged his expansion. He went from 1 place, now he's at 3, and he's looking to even go to 5 in short order, as well as create all of the franchising material that anyone could need to put Pizza Base really all over Africa. And you can actually see pizzabase.africa. This is a site we made for him. And you can see this is our menu. We keep our branding pretty low key. And so this is an interesting thing about Pizza Now, right? We do not want to to be the IP of these pizzerias. We want them to hold their IP, right? Because when you're a pizzeria, that is, you want to own your pizzeria. You want to be a self-sovereign pizzeria. So we are infrastructure. We are a layer for them to assist them in building their IP. So we power the pizzeria, but we don't own Pizza Base. Chef owns Pizza Base. He will give Pizza Now a bit of Pizza Base, right? He's thinking he wants to give us like 10%. We might push him to a slice, 12.5%. But this is how we think about our partnership with these pizzerias. We want them to own their own brand. Real estate. So one of my favorite movies is with Michael Keaton, the oh my God, why am I blanking on it right now? The Founder, the McDonald's movie. And I watched it a few times, and I was reminded that McDonald's business is actually real estate. And Pizza Now can actually be the same. So as we build these relationships with pizzerias all over the world, we can go out and buy real estate with them. We go to our local communities. We say, do you love this pizzeria? They say, yes. We say, do you want to help them expand? They say, yes. We say, okay, here's a plot of land. Let's buy it together with the pizzeria, give them a very fair rental agreement, and help them build. This is important because one of the primary reasons why small businesses fail is landlords. Moving along. So other stuff that we can build with Pizza Now and that we have been building is games, especially with the advent of vibe coding, which we really didn't see coming at the beginning of Pizza Now. And when attention is all you need, that seminal Google paper, right? As we realize this, we can leverage this new tooling to just build stuff way faster than ever before. And because we have this global audience, because we have this global community, because people are layer zero, suddenly we have distribution. You may have heard that content is king, distribution is God, and we are very aligned with that. So we've started just firing out games. We made this Pizza Chef game, which I think is actually super fun. If anyone gets a high score on it, I'll give you a Pizza Now NFT. I'll link it in the chat. One of our members, so this is another thing. We think about our global pizza party as we joke that, I'll do a little story here. So the pirates used to rule the world. You may know this, everyone, but the pirates rule the world. People think it's kings and queens, but it's actually pirates. And why did the pirates rule the world? It's because they knew where all the material resources were on Earth. Nobody else really knew where everything was, but the pirates were traveling around and they knew where everything was. But the pirates ultimately kind of lost control because they stopped. Everyone sort of knew where all the material resources were in the world. It stopped being a mystery, right? But why I think that crypto is we are the modern pirates is because we know where all the human resources are in the world. And that is actually true value today when attention is the only scarce resource on Earth. So what's amazing is that with this global pizza party, which we kind of joke is a human resource mining operation, suddenly our communities all over the world are using new tooling to create stuff with Pizza Now IP that we can then send out to every other city. So our Barcelona community made this Molto Bene game, and our tech crew made Molto Bene's Delivery Room, where it's kind of like a geo game. We made a pizza personality quiz, which is just a simple quiz, but fun, and we have distribution, so we think people will have fun with it. We made a mixtape, which is actually way better than it has any right to be, and we just see people love pizza, people love to create things, and we are pulling them out to build with us, with our IP and with our friends. We've also built a bunch of other stuff. We built a pizza faucet, which on Farcaster, we give out pizza and people can post pizza that they bought and request that we reimburse. And then there's a very easy pathway for us to just go in there and send them some funds to reimburse for their pizza. We're building a tool called rsv.pizza, which is a way for an event organizer to very easily order the proper pizza for their party, just checking what the guests' preferences are. Pineapple makes a bad pizza better and a good pizza worse is an interesting take. I personally, I'll admit, I have been known to enjoy pineapple on a pizza. And when Pizza Now, when we're lazy, we put out a poll about pineapple on our official account, and it seems like we're averaging around 69% yes over time. Our Sri Lanka community built a Telegram bot, actually, that is fantastic. So we have over 400 Telegram groups, one for every city on Earth. Our Sri Lanka community, based in Colombo, they were already building bots for Binance and some of the largest institutions in the space, and so they built us one. So we have this outpouring of creativity because people like to have fun, they like to throw a global pizza party, and they want to contribute. We're working on a point of sale now because, again, vibe coding is just lowering as the cost of development goes to zero. Community and distribution are going to be the only mode. So we are thinking really hard about how to leverage that. Pizzapartystuff.com. We're building kind of a drop shipping website for all of the stuff you might want to throw an amazing pizza party. So that's what I got for you today. The future is bright for building within this ecosystem because of our distribution. I think it all comes down to people and just like, if you get marketed to, right, what are you going to actually click through and pay attention to? Some ad somewhere or a recommendation of a friend? Especially in the age of AI slop, right? You can't even trust anything. So humans are where it's at. And pizza brings humans together, right? It's community in a box. So please join our Discord. We have community calls every Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We would be happy to see you. We can give you your Pizza Mafia name, which is a combination of your favorite pizza topping and your favorite Mafia movie. I'm Enzo Pepperoni because Snow Crash is actually my favorite text in this context. And feel free to reach out to me on X or by email.
Thank you very much, Snacks. And because next up we have Lobi, who is coming and delivering another one of our keynotes today. So I'm going to invite Lobi up to join me on stage. And then following this, we have one more talk from a winner from Surreal World Assets 1, Patrick, who will be joining to help us finish out the opening ceremony today. Lobi, I have sent you a invite. If you don't see it, can you flag in chat? Hopefully you're not too busy ordering. Can't see it. What's going on? Could you, I'm going to send it again, but if you still can't see it, can you refresh and rejoin? Maybe you got distracted ordering some pizza and oh, another Lobi is joined. I'm going to invite the second Lobi. Getting ready. Amazing. So coming to join me up on stage now.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, we can hear you well.
Awesome. Let me try and share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can see the infinite loop. Now we can see your slides.
Okay, awesome. Thank God for that. Okay, sweet. Thank you so much.
We can see the Firefox pop up in the corner that has like the screen share. We can close that. If you on your toolbar, yeah, there we go. Nice.
Ooh. Okay, that should be better, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Sweet. Hey everyone. Today I'm talking about avant-gay NFTs. That's Hideous Man is the response from Solana Cole Anson after seeing an NFT called Little Swag World, which you can see on the left of the screen there. Little Swag World is one of the key collections in the canon of this small art movement known as avant NFTs or gay NFTs or avant/gay NFTs, which is, yeah, what I'm talking about today. I'm Lobi. I've been involved in the scene for like a year or two now. I do weekly interviews on Spaces with artists in the scene through my show World Receiver. World Receiver is hosted via vvv.so, which is a Solana minting platform built by people in the scene. It's really impressive, very customizable, and a super exciting thing that's happened within the last few months, basically. I also do more general talk show with Verse.works, who are like an ETH platform. And I also do writing for the platform Exchange.art, who are on Solana, and they also have Ethereum functionality. But yeah, a lot of art-based work basically. And I wanted to start off with this tweet because I find it very funny that hideous is the first word he uses to describe this piece. When in reality, I think LSW, or Swag World, is one of the far more accessible collections within the avant-garde scene. As you can see on the right, it has this, it's a much cleaner, nicer aesthetic than the stuff you're going to see later. So what is the scene? It's been under intense analysis and scrutiny over the past few months. As a lot of liquidity and fresh eyes have flowed towards it, there's been a lot of new collectors and artists finding themselves entangled in this movement. There's a lot of, there's sort of consensus that recognizes how hard it is to document the scene due to the limits of digital archiving, in that half of the lore and the origins of the scene are kind of shrouded in mystery due to it all happening in disparate X group chats. The knowledge is literally passed on through tweets and timeline beefs, and it's all very unorganized, and it wasn't really being archived in any easily accessible way. And that's kind of where I positioned myself through my writing spaces, doing these in an attempt at preserving some knowledge around this movement that I believe is actually very important, and seeing myself as a sort of archivist instead of an art critic or even really an art writer. Garden Putty, a key member and collector in the scene, described the problem with archiving this scene pretty well in his recent article, which is called Notes from the Avant NFT Underground, where he says, "To know this world is to live on the timeline, to be in more Twitter group chats than you care to, and to understand the history and personal conflicts that make the scene as much for pro wrestling style soap opera as it is a new branch of contemporary art." From my understanding, the idea of Avant NFT as a name and movement stems from an early piece of writing on the Remilia blog site. Remilia being the makers of the Lady Maker, as well as a bunch of other IP. Yeah, it was used to describe Remilia as a collective as an Avant NFT collective DAO. This was compounded by this meme, which was by Bosch, who created Little Swag World, the collection I opened with. And he used it in this meme about NFTs. It featured a bunch of early collections that were sort of foundational to the later movement. You see the bottom left, Bunklers, which were also Remilia IP, as well as Jabberforms, which is like early GAN works, and a lot of Bosch's work was early GAN work, as I'll get into later. But yeah, the use of Avant wasn't really a term that was loved or co-opted by a lot of people who ended up as key figures in the scene. Jared Madare, who runs a gallery in New York City called Yechi Lang, which showcases a lot of the artists in this scene's physical work. And he also runs VVV, where I host World Receiver, and where a lot of the work that's coming out of the scene is now being minted on Solana. He told me that while Remilia used it sincerely, one of the artists in the scene, Spiky DJ, they're sort of collective, as well as Jared himself, used it in a more ironic way. This was cemented after an interview with Jared where he said the circuit we're part of jokingly refers to itself as Avant NFT, but the interviewers cut out the jokingly part, which is some classic journalism. And then the final part of the name history is regarding where the gay part came from. There's been a lot of talk around sort of the origin of where all this naming convention came from and the sort of roots of it. And it kind of comes back to what Daniel was saying earlier about him wanting to coin optimism. People like to have that sort of claim. And the gay naming convention is the only one that has like a sort of solid thing we can point to. So it's related to our ironic use of Avant that was just mentioned, and it became a thing because the series of tweets between Tajiba Brand Manager, one of my favorite artists in the scene, and New Art Program. Yeah, calling things Avant has always been pretty gay, not gonna lie. Well, we can't call it gay NFT. We could. That we could was all it took for the gay NFT naming to become canon. It serves different purpose to different people. Matter of Material Work said in a tweet that the Solana Underground identifying as gay is a great filter to alienate both the fragile homophobic bros terrified of being seen as gay and the purity police. For me, I think it's mainly just really funny, especially given the thread that started being so ridiculous and how quickly a small 3-tweet exchange can come to help define an art movement. It's proof of like this really intense mimetic force that kind of runs through all of the works in this scene, and I guess crypto in general. So moving on from the name origins, what does the actual art look like? I've shown the swag world, and I'll go into it a bit more here. Bosch, the artist behind this, made them with GANs, generative adversarial networks, an early form of AI. And rather than giving into the strange aesthetics often like seen in early AI works, and you can see it in his collection on the left here, Super Metal Mons 1s and 2. Super Metal Mons sort of designed and trained on a bunch of like minifigures. They always remind me of Crazy Bones Go-Go's, and I love them for that because that was like the biggest thing I collected as a kid. These are obviously super strange and uncanny, and they kind of fit in that sort of early AI canon of weird and gross, but also kind of cute in a strange way. These ones are, yeah, they have scary cute sort of aspect to them. The one on the bottom left is called Omom, and I think he's like one of my favorites. But yeah, I see LSW, Little Swag World, as sort of moving past that. It's moving past this uncanny use of AI and actually really succeeding at making something quite beautiful and interesting outside of just playing on the uncanny. It's not leaning into that. Little Swag World is informed by a lot of influences that are super common to many of the works in the avant-garde scene, the sort of like pop culture meets internet culture and aesthetics. This idea of toys as avatars, with LSW specifically looking like a combination of a sort of hype beast Funko Pop and the collectible figurine aesthetic. The plastic whenever feeling cheap. The fits are insane, and like designed and styled off of like video games and a lot of actual fashion. And they have their small characters. The Mons on the left actually translate over to the right, and are used as little sidekicks in LSW. And there's also like a lot of important art historical paintings as traits and background framing, and you'll see that a lot throughout a lot of the collections. But here you have Francis Bacon piece used as background to this LSW piece. And I said that earlier, LSW is a more accessible collection. And I believe this is partly because its influences are definitely there, but they exist in an idea of a whole figurine. And this is lost in a lot of the later collections, where the image becomes a dumping ground for an immense amount of information in an aesthetic coined trait maxing. Many artists in the scene are using a program called Hashlips, a sort of auto collage software that can put together a multitude of single images known as traits and compile them into a whole image. This use of traits has lended itself to an exasperating amount of remixing. This diagram shows 5 different collections and how they all employ the same trait. And this sort of hyper-citational practice is key to understanding the scene and its constant references to itself. And I think it's really interesting to be having this conversation during like an IP buildathon, because a lot of the way we work is complete democratization of the assets. Like we are constantly just giving our assets away to one another for anyone to use, basically. And they have been remixed countless times, you can see here, throughout different collections by a bunch of different artists. One of the key collections is Mythella, which you can see on the far left, and was the earliest of these. You can see this was actually made by Son of Lasgo and X, so thank you to him for using this, for making this. You can see the sort of order of influence at the top of when images were minted. But yeah, one of the key ones from Mythella is a collection about Milady, the ETH collection by Remilia Corp, you see on the right. Mythella exists as a kind of black sheep brother, far more nihilistic or realistic, I guess, in its attitude towards the Solana trenches and sort of meme coins, and actually how brutal and it's just gambling. And this is in complete contrast to the overly optimistic white-pilled Milady, which is all about love, supposedly. And this idea was then spun again for the second collection, Mythella 2, which actually isn't shown here. Mythella 2 was a collection about Mythella, and it pooled traits from these 10 different artists all together. So all these 10 different artists were throwing their own images over and over again into, yeah, and it just made these insane maximalist pieces that, yeah, they're like some of the most maximalist works in the canon. And the remixing doesn't end there. Drafella, which you can see as the second collection, and Drafella 2. Drafella is a collection about Mythella, with Drafella being a collection that is forged from the remnants of a fallen Dratini and the essence of Nefella's soul, which is something it says in the description of the collection on Ethereum. And then we have at the end Drill Lady, which is like a Lola. You can't see it too clearly here, but it's like a sexy Lola bunny as as the sort of outline. And I guess it's a sexy Lola bunny that is forged with the essence of Drafella's soul. To keep in that sort of line of thinking. It's really weird art. There's no denying it. And the rabbit hole gets weirder, and 15 minutes is not really enough at all to go through all the lore, and I'm barely scratching the surface. Luckily, there's plenty of writing popping up recently regarding all of it. I do some over on Twitter. I'm at ArchivePilled, and you can find them on my highlights tab. But really, I think the best overview we have right now is a very recent piece that I mentioned earlier, the Garden Party piece, which is published via Right Click Save, and it's called Notes from the Avant NFT Underground. And if you're interested in kind of finding out the full history, it's worth going there. Yeah, it's a really interesting time to be kind of interested in it all. But all this leads me to why is this work important? So I promise it does sort of come back to building art, building on blockchains. So no one has to like the same art as me, but I'm absolutely going to argue for why I think the work I like is worth liking. And when it comes to avant-garde NFTs, there is something so fresh about it. It's like a genuine new movement, something that, of course, like all movements, feels from the past, but it is capturing something new. Many people have like tried to attempt to pie these works off as extensions of other movements, especially like Dadaism. And there's like a big conversation at the moment about how like abstract expressionism is coming back, and I think people are just trying to understand like new movements through the old, which I get, but it's not doing what Dada is doing, as we can see. This is what people are kind of saying about it on the left. And we've seen like trait maxing, that sort of maximalist aesthetic, talked about as schizo collage, which is something I don't really like, because people then just seem to read it as just another form of collage. And the whole schizo thing also reminds me of the sort of degenerate trader and the schizo personality stuff that is like rife in the Solana trenches outside of the art scene, and doesn't really interest me. But to me, the more interesting way of looking at all this is in how Jared Nader talks about Drafella as the most exciting painting conversation in the last 20 years, definitely in the last 15. But it's still more than digital painting. Where we had the post-internet generation of artists, people like John Rathman, Petra Kortright, Oliver Larrick, Molly Ullman, Daniel Keller, who was speaking earlier, and Parker Ito, who made the Lady collection I showed above. And all those artists I just named have like worked adjacent to our sort of scene, whether or at least are involved in crypto now, which I also find very interesting. Where these artists were, and I'll read a quote from either folks to explain it. They were working in a way that, quote, references one so deeply embedded in and propelled by the internet that the notion of a world or culture without it or outside it becomes increasingly unimaginable or impossible. The avant-garde scene kind of moves on from this. It's not about reference. Where their work was about the internet, our work, I believe, is the internet. When I look at many of these collections, I truly feel as if a computer, if given the autonomy and personality and upbringing of the artists, would be outputting the same work, you know. Like, as Parker says on the left here, gay NFT is the first mimetic art in context, in form, and in dissemination. It's the first art that's truly internet, and the below works aren't comparable. And I made a tweet a few months back saying, we are no longer making art about the internet. We are conduits for the internet to make art itself. If the computer had hands, it would have made Drafella, it would have made the Toji works in honor of its ancestors. Oh, I just realized I got the wrong image though. It would have made Squishy Drifters when it got its license, and it would have made Little Swag World for its toys. As the Buildathon commences, I think it's important to think about an idea that heavily relates to this NFT scene, the idea of giving tools to the internet, imagining what a sort of self-actualized internet looks like. It isn't about monopoly algorithms and monopoly platforms. It's about creating a way for individualism to shine while still building collectives. one of the beautiful things about early internet is how customizable it was, and a lot of what's happening in the scene kind of reminds me of stuff like of that early internet feeling you got. There's that recent trope that's been passed around in the past few years, but I quite like it. It's the idea that the internet used to be a place you visited rather than the place you always within. Some people want to be completely in it. I don't know if I do. I like it being a place that I can go to. And avant-gay NFTs are sort of a reminder of this. I love going to my wallet and spending time looking at the ones I own from a specific collection and getting lost in them. They're like hypertext novels. And if you go down like where all the traits came from, you'd be studying them for a very long time. And I get so much joy from this exploration, the same way I got it from going through Tumblr blogs and clicking through GeoCities sites and finding all these uniquely made, quirky places on the internet. But they also, as artwork, symbolize the internet now surrounds us, how hard it is to escape it. Like this ceaseless content literally feeds into all the art. The art is made out of this ceaseless content. All these traits are just taken from the timeline, and that's where like it's all actually very anti-IP. It's really bad in this context. It's all pretty much stolen. But my question is, how can we make it feel like we're getting lost in a creative way again? That's how I felt when I first came to the scene. I felt like, oh my God, I felt very excited about the prospect and the way my friends are working in the scene and the new stuff that keeps dropping daily. I'm like, finally, there's something actually creative and exciting happening here. And I'm interested in how the scene has built a way for this creative freedom and autonomy by using crypto as a way of helping fund projects, as well as using AI and vibe coding as a way of like expanding your creative practice. I have sites that I would never have been able to make because I'm not a coder without Claude and vibe coding. And that's really exciting, being able to do that for my artwork. So yeah, I'm excited to see what people build in that sort of space. And I want to use the internet to improve my art, to have total control of what I'm creating. And I want to be able to have fun online, feel like I'm visiting spaces and feel like I have control over what I'm consuming. I want to feel inspired to make my own home on the internet and to know that I have the tools to do this and sustain this space like it's my own garden. That's all from me. Thank you so much, Nick, for inviting me here and show all the story people. And thank you, Rebecca, for everything you've been doing. It's been a really cool event. So yeah, really appreciate you guys having me on to talk about this.
Thank you very much, Lobi, for joining us. I'm inviting our next speaker up because we have one more talk, and that is from Patrick, who is another winner of the Surreal World's Assets Buildathon 1. He won with IP Radar in the data track, which we have again this time. He should be joining me up on stage.
Hello, I will get going. It's going to be more of a talk about my process during SWA1 rather than showcasing the projects. But yeah.
Be good to hear your insight.
Okay, can you see?
Yep, looks good.
Great. So hello, I'm Patrick, one of the winners of SWA1, and I suppose I'm here to share what I've learned building on Story. So as a brief intro, I have now participated in 2 hackathons in this ecosystem, IP Radar at SWA1 and IP AutoVault at the IRL Story Hack. So this quick pitch will be about that journey to hopefully give some insight on what it takes to build successfully on Story. So one quick preface, do ignore the graphics as this deck was 100% AI generated. So some of the images do not match anything I'm talking about at all, but oh well. So yeah, when I first looked at Story Protocol, my approach kind of was to first understand and scope out what's unique about the ecosystem, what problems I can solve here that can't be solved elsewhere. And instead of spending my time looking at absolutely everything, I tried to get stuck in and form ideas as I go, so that once I land on something, I can reduce my scope down to only looking at the docs for like what's relevant to what I'm building. But also as a preface, it's obviously not good to rush into building without understanding the landscape first. As rushing in and getting something wrong and having to bug fix can often end up being more time consuming, as tempting as it is. So once I grasped a reasonable enough understanding of the ecosystem and what I want to build, I reached out to the Story team simply to validate my idea. I'm sure Story will give you plenty of great insight on knowing what exactly is useful to them, what they want to see, what works, and what doesn't already have a bunch of clones. And don't feel bad or reluctant to just reach out. I'm sure Jacob enjoys being pestered. And building on that, I'm sure the team can give you feedback you probably didn't even anticipate and point you towards new ideas and scope. So I'll briefly go over the things I built, merely for the purpose of trying to spark potential inspiration. So the first thing I built was IP Radar. It came directly from gathering an understanding of Story's IP layer and thinking about what utility I felt was lacking. So the idea I landed on here was a sort of visualization layer for Story, both to visualize on-chain relationships and also provide semantic embedding for visual assets. In hindsight, I should really have probably added demos to these slides, but oh well, here we are. We just have a static image that's not related to the product. Anyway, this product was to essentially provide that visual embedding for how similar any given assets are, which I think ties nicely into the purpose and greater utility of Story. And one last thing I'll add is that this product was not so much of a deep integration on the tech side, but I think it was very well aligned in purpose and building on that story as a data layer. Now, the second product I built on Story, which is much more aligned to what I do, is IP Auto Vault. I thought of this from scouting the DeFi ecosystem of Story, scoping out where the potential novel yield opportunities are, and integrating with relevant protocols. One thing that I think might be a useful building insight here was some of the protocols I was integrating with didn't really have published contract addresses or APIs in docs. So I kind of just used a developer-friendly wallet to attempt to sign a transaction in the dApp, use the wallet to grab a snippet of the API and see the contract address where the transaction is going to, which kind of will work, and you can replicate that with scripts. But one caveat with this is vulnerable still to things like hook contracts. So if anything involving multi-steps is breaking, the likelihood here is that you're running into one of those. So in that case, just reach out to the protocol you're trying to interact with, and I'm sure the Story team can give them the bump if they're slow to get back to you. So TLDR from my experience building on Story, and often more generally, is first, it's important to understand those core primitives, differences from other chains, and the overarching goals. Know the existing tooling, bridges, scout what dev tools you can use, what ideas or apps already exist, and even make sure to pre-fund your wallets using faucets, just so you don't have to run around begging the Story team for testnet tokens. And lastly, read docs. Documentation is your best friend if you feed it to AI, if you're lazy, but then at least have it in your AI's context window as you're building. And here's a practical slide, I guess. So one thing that's practical to keep in mind is to know the submission requirements before you start building. You want your submission to showcase the vision you want to portray from your project. So having to do a pitch or README or something that you only realize you need to do at the deadline is not generally going to portray the quality you want. So without being too redundant with what Nick said at the start, I will add on a couple of things to what I think might give you a competitive edge. One thing, making it specific to Story in some way, where either in purpose or technical integration. Next, with bigger and more recent hackathons, I think showing commitment has become more important. So showing off that you're serious about your product, which can come in the form of something like early validation with market research, customer feedback if relevant, which is not even too absurd to get started on even pre-MVP nowadays. And then if you think you're committed to taking your idea beyond the hackathon, as they said at the start, then kind of showing that explicitly, starting any GTM outreach or just getting socials up and running is only ever going to help you show that commitment. Well, this slide is just to say hackathons can be for anyone, even if you want to just build something cool, just to dilute my emphasis on the last few sentences. But yeah, I've yapped enough, so let's wrap this up. So yeah, hopefully that's a good enough job from me. I do believe I was the last person on this schedule, so with Rebecca's consent, people may start to scram.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for presenting that and some really useful advice there. So hopefully, for those of you who are planning on building a technical project in the Buildathon, as opposed to tackling the AI video track, that's some really, really useful advice, especially those of you who didn't participate in Surreal World's Assets 1. As Patrick said, he has won 2 Story hackathons now. So I'm not sure how many hackathons Story has done in total, but that probably puts him in the top tier for who knows how to win a hackathon on Story. So thank you very much, Patrick, for coming and delivering that. And you are correct. This is the end of our opening ceremony. So thank you everyone who stuck around, especially we've run over the time that we blocked for you, but we've had some really, really interesting talks, and hopefully you're all inspired and ready to get started.